It is almost the end of June, which is insane. I already did the mid-year freakout tag, so check that out. But also what I try to do every June is to check in with any reading challenges that I'm doing for the year to see if I'm on track for them, if I'm still doing them. And then I'm also thinking about doing the Our Lost Library Readathon for July. So I want to be able to see if any of the books I'm going to read for a reading challenge count for that, and vice versa, so that I can double dip where I can. So I figured I would record my musings and planning for that, and then post it up, see what you guys think. And if you're doing any reading challenges that you would recommend, let me know, and I can check those out. Anyway, let's get on to the video. Okay, so I'm doing two reading challenges already. One is the Read Harder book challenge. So if you don't know what that is, the Book Riot Read Harder reading challenge. So every year Book Riot puts out 24 categories of books to read, to kind of like enhance your reading year. So it's 24 categories, and they do not split it up. So they just give you the 24 categories, and then you figure out when you're going to read each one. And at the end of the year, if you have done all 24, then you get a discount in their online bookstore. So, but I have a friend, Sarah Says Read, and we went to the first Book Riot conference together and found out that we lived in the same area. So we decided to put a Read Harder challenge book club discussion group together. So we've been doing that for the last 3 years. But she just moved to like Virginia or somewhere ridiculous like that. So we've still been doing it online for 2020, but we don't know what's going to happen for next year. But anyway, I won't go through all of the categories. I'll just kind of like highlight the ones that I've done. So of the 24 categories, I've completed 15 of them. So that's really good for me so far because it's only June, which means that I only have 9 categories left. The problem is that the 15 that I've already done would be the ones that were easy, like I read them because I wanted to read them or because they were already on my TBR. So it's always harder to finish the challenge because it's the books that don't kind of like jump out at me anyway. So the ones, let me see if there's any on here that I would definitely recommend. So one of the categories was read a romance starring a single parent, and I read The Governor's Game, which was, I don't remember who the author is. I'm not prepared for this video. I don't remember who the author is, but it was about a guy who the title, like he's the Duke or something, and the title and the house comes with these 2 orphans or something like that. So he's a single parent. So that was it was good, and it was really cute. And the kids that he's raising are really morbid and stage the deaths of their dolls every morning, and he has to preside over it. So that was really good. I had to read a play by an author of color or by a queer author. So for that one, I used Sharks, which is a play that is being written and produced locally through Gray Noise Theater. One of my best friends is the artistic director there, and one of my good friends is the playwright. So I went to the table reading for that. And I'm going to count that for my reading challenge. Graphic memoir, Good Talk. I read that in April, and that was I read it, it's a graphic novel, but I read it in audio because it was a full cast, and it was about the author's kind of experience being a person of color and married to a white guy, and their son, who's brown skinned, and kind of how they navigate some of those conversations, and how she navigates the conversations with her parents, who I think are from India. So that was really good. One of the books that I read was had to be a doorstopper, at least 500 pages long, published after 1950. So I read Crescent City, and that counts for that because that was 700 pages long, super long. It was fun. So I'll tell you, I need a book about climate change, which sounds super boring. So if you read a book about climate change that you really liked, let me know. And a book about a natural disaster. So again, books that I wouldn't necessarily pick up just on my own. And that's the whole point of Read Harder. And really any reading challenge is that it challenges you to pick up books that you wouldn't typically read. I'm gonna need a horror book published by an indie press. So if you've got one of those, I love horror. So, oh, look at the shirt I'm wearing today. So if you have a recommendation for that, and let me see, a YA nonfiction book, and a sci-fi novella under 120 pages. So that's been the hard thing. I was gonna reread Benty, but those are all a little bit too long. So if you have a sci-fi novella under 120 pages, let me know. I'm all over it. Okay, and then the second challenge I'm working on is through my local library. So they came up with 30 categories. And some of them overlap with the Read Harder challenge, which is great. I love when that happens, and some of them are different. And some of them are about reading a book. Some of them are about doing a bookish thing. So let's see. One of them says read a volume of poetry. I did that one. Reread a book you read in school. I might be able to find one for that. Read out loud to someone. So I counted my first video that I did. That was actually how I started the YouTube channel. I read a picture book out loud for this challenge and then uploaded it. And that's kind of how I got started doing this. But I also participate locally before we were in sheltering in place with Second Sunday Story Time over at the Avenue Black Box Theater, where they have volunteers come and read to kids. So I was doing that too. So that one was easy one. Read a band book. Oh, here's one about a natural disaster. So that's overlapping one that I'm gonna need. Read an audiobook narrated by the author. Did that one. Boom. Book club. Easy. I read Breakfast at Tiffany's for a short story by a famous author, and it was really not good. Like, it's really interesting how not good that book was. How not good that story was. Classics. Read a classic piece of literature. I read The Bluest Eye for that. I read anything outside. Give a book as a gift, which I did. I did that one. I sent my friend Rebecca, who's housebound in quarantine, a couple books. So I need to count that for that one. Read a book about meditation and then meditate. Gotta do that one. Read a book by a queer author. I'm gonna count Felix Ever After, which I just read for that one. Make a recipe from a cookbook. I'm gonna guess that I do that one in December unless I find something that just like pops out at me. Let's see. They have the horror book by an indie press. I'm going to assume that some of these were, because that's very specific. So I'm gonna assume that either they published theirs first and then Read Harder looked at it, which would be weird because it's a local library, or Read Harder did theirs first and then our local library picked it. See a play live or watch it on digital format. Done. Easy. I'm counting Next to Normal as that one, which was a really powerful play about a woman who is suffering from grief. Although in the play we're calling it bipolar disorder, but we'll just go with their interpretation. Read a book that was published posthumously. After the author passed away. I read When Breath Becomes Air. Okay, so, watch a movie based on a book. I finally saw Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which was a book I loved a couple of years ago. So I'm gonna count that for that. So a couple of other ones I haven't done yet. Listen to music and follow along with the lyrics. Actually, I probably have done that one. I'll do another one. Read a famous speech and then watch a rendition of it. Read a book by an author born the same year as you. So some of the interesting things about some of these book challenges is that you really have to get into knowing who the author is. Like 3 years ago, I remember there was one of the challenges where you had to, it was about a queer author or a trans author or something like that. And for a while, or even by an author of color, for a while in publishing and in other kinds of industries, people didn't really talk about that. Even if you were kind of out in your life, there was an understanding, and I think still is, that some of those intersectional identities may limit the audience that looks to read your book. So you had to dig a little bit, or you had to find personal accounts and things like that. And then it kind of felt like you were outing people. That's becoming a little bit less, like as people are actively reading intentionally to expand their experiences with reading and expand the kinds of stories they're reading. Authors are feeling a little bit more comfortable in identifying what their identities are on the back cover or on their professional websites. So it's getting a little bit easier to read with intention and to purposefully decolonize our reading list. So that's been a pretty cool thing to see. Our Lost Library Readathon starts July 1st. And there are also categories that you have to read, and I don't have it, and I can't look it up because I'm recording with my phone. So I've never done our Lost Library. I've never done one of their readathons before. So diversity is the theme. It runs all the way through July, and it's set up like a bingo board. So some of the categories, let's see, I'm excited about the protagonist with disability, a Mirrors and Windows picture book, beautiful cover art, characters of every color. So I think that just with my usual reading for July, that I'll probably hit at least some of these categories. Oh, and then one of them is a buddy read. So I have to find somebody who wants to buddy read something with me for this challenge. A diverse retelling, mythology, like those are just things that I would like to read anyway. So I'm gonna see if I can fit some of those into the other challenges that I'm doing and participate in the Our Lost Library Readathon for July. And there will also be questions every day from some of the organizers. So I'm excited about doing that. I haven't done a readathon probably in over a year. Not since I was blogging, so it's been a while since I've done that. So I'm excited about that. So it is halfway through the year, and it's been an interesting one so far, and I think will continue to get interesting as things start opening back up. But I don't think there'll be too much theater happening, so I'll probably still have plenty of time for my books. So I hope to see what you guys have read and what you'll be reading soon. Bye.